This is the second part for lesson 11.2. Okay, continuing on number 2, we are going to prove that the two triangles are congruent or not using HL, so hypotenuse leg. So that means that I have to be working with two right angles or right triangles, which I see that I am. So that's good. So we're going to start out with these statements. So KM is equal to, so look at your picture, KM, it was given. No work involved there. KL, given. NP, given. OP, given. The measure of angle K, given. The measure of angle N, given. All of that is given. I didn't have to do anything, calculate anything, think about anything. It was all right there. Okay, the next one, it says ML, so that's this side. So how will I find that? What do I know that will help me? So hopefully you remember that we know the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, so we're going to do 65 squared plus 72 squared equals x squared, and we're going to solve that for x. So when you do the calculations, you are going to find that that is equal to 97. Okay, so the reason is Pythagorean theorem, and that's what we had to do for that. So the next statement that I've got here, it says NP is congruent to what? What is NP congruent to? It's congruent to MK, or KM. I'm going to say it that way because it's going to start at the 90-degree angle and go to the other one. So I'm going to do the same thing. And I find that that's very helpful for when I get ready to write my congruent statement. Okay, same thing, PO. So 97 is equal to, that's going to be ML. They are equal to each other. They're both 97, and so ML. Okay, so look at what I have. I have NP, which is a leg, and I have ML, which is a hypotenuse in a right triangle. And the reason right here for this one is going to be congruent parts have equal measures. They were congruent because they were equal measures, so congruent parts and so triangle blank is congruent to triangle blank. Just repeat what it was you were trying to prove in the first place. So we're going to say triangle KLM is congruent to triangle NOP. And the reason is because of hypotenuse leg. So where I've got these proofs set up for you and you're just making choices, it shouldn't be something that it's really hard to figure out. You're going to use prior knowledge that you have. Okay, the last example, look at what we're given. It says we are given that triangle ABC is an equilateral triangle. So what does that mean? That means this side is congruent to this side and it's congruent to this side. That's given to me. All right. The other thing I know, because it's an equilateral triangle, it doesn't mean that it's given, but think about in an equilateral triangle, what do you know? If all the sides are congruent, what else do you know? Because it's an equilateral triangle, you know all the angles are congruent, so they would all be 60. So that's just kind of something that follows up. I might need that. So I'm just going to keep that in mind. Another thing that I'm given is that M is the midpoint of AC. So what does it mean to be the midpoint? What it means to be the midpoint then is that it's right in the middle. So it means AM is congruent to MC. So I'm just going to write that. AM is congruent to MC. That's not given to me. It's just kind of a follow-up piece of information. N is the midpoint of AB. So that means that these pieces are the same. And so I'm going to write AN is congruent to BN. And again, that wasn't given to me. It was just a follow-up because of the midpoint, the definition of what a midpoint is. And then same thing right here. All right, so I know that CP is congruent to PB. Again, because of what a midpoint is. And so when I say because of what a midpoint is, that's the definition of a midpoint. Okay, another piece of information I'm given is that AC, which is this piece right here, is equal to 8. And so if it's equal to 8, I also know this side is equal to 8 because that's what an equilateral triangle means. It means that all the sides are equal. I also know that this is 4 and this is 4 because of what a midpoint is. It splits it in half. So my job here is to prove that triangle CMP, and I'm going to erase all these marks that I have here, but triangle CMP, that's this triangle, is congruent to BNP. So I have to prove that. All right, so we have to do this. Now, what we're going to do here is I've got this list, and these are the things that you get to choose from to fill in the blanks for this proof. Okay, so everything is going to come out of that list. So we're going to start out with some givens. So what are some things that were given? So look at what we were given. We were given five given statements. So let's write them all. I also noticed that there's another place for givens as well. So I have to think about like what's the most important things that I'm going to need. So I'm just going to start out with triangle ABC is equilateral. That was given. Okay. I also know that, now look at what it says right here. It says N is the midpoint of AB. That was given. And that was one of the reasons why. So I'm going to mark that off. ABC is equilateral. I'm going to mark that off. Okay. What's something else that was given? How about P is the midpoint of CB? P is the midpoint of CB. Mark it off. M is the midpoint of AC. Mark that off. Okay. And then the next thing is blank. So I'm listing all of the givens here. There's one more given reason, so I think that that's going to go right there. What's the other given statement that I haven't used yet? The other statement I haven't used yet that was given is that AC equals 8. Okay, so I'm going to mark that off. All right, so the next thing it says CB is equal to. Now, if it says equal to, then I'm looking for a number. Okay, so CB is equal to, and there's no numbers to choose from. So let's see, what else could I write then? There's no numbers to choose from on that one, and so that must mean that I'm just going to use something I already have. So 8 and 8. And why? Because the sides of an equilateral triangle are congruent. That would make sense. So sides of an equilateral triangle are congruent. Okay, now the next thing it says is MC is equal to what? So look at your picture. MC is equal to, we already said it was 4. So we already know that that's equal to 4. CP is 4, BP is 4, BN is 4. We already know that. How do we know that? We know that because what a midpoint is. Okay, so definition of a midpoint is what tells me that. Okay, so the next statement says NB is congruent to MC. So I'm saying these two are congruent to each other. How would I know they're equal? Well, they have equal measures. Okay, so if BN is equal to 4 and 4 is equal to MC, then that's substitution. And I also know I have that to choose from as well. So substitution is something I need to choose from as well. Okay. The next thing it says CP is congruent to. What is CP congruent to that I would care about, okay, in these triangles? So CP is congruent to BP. That's what I would care that they were congruent to. It's equal to a lot of the other things, but that's what I care about in this particular problem. And again, because congruent parts have equal measures, they're both equal to 4. And NB is congruent to, again, look at your picture. NB is congruent to MC. Whoops. Now I could have put both of those in the same box because they have the same reason. So you can just do that. Okay, the next thing it says, the reason is that angles in an equilateral triangle are congruent. So what up here, I don't have a lot of things. Oh, I've used that one. So really there's only one thing left. Angle B is congruent to angle C. Look at how that helps me. How does that help me in proving what I'm trying to prove? I'm trying to prove that these two triangles are congruent. I have just said that this is congruent to this. I have just said this is congruent to this. And I am about to say those are congruent. So I'm going to say angle B is congruent to angle C because angles in an equilateral triangle are congruent, and B and C are both angles of my equilateral triangle. So go back to what I'm trying to prove. I'm trying to prove this triangle is congruent to this triangle. I have exactly what I need. I have a side. I have an angle, side. I have an angle, and I have a side. Now the angle is included between the two sides. So side, angle, side, and I'm going to just say that triangle, and I can actually just repeat what it is I'm trying to prove, so just write that down. CMP is congruent to triangle BNP. Okay, so that's how you would do a proof like that, where you have things to choose from. I didn't give you numbers to put in, so you'd have to come up with those yourself. And I think everything else is there. So hopefully that helps. And on your homework, you're going to be doing some proofs. They're all fill in the blank, so you're going to just be finding the reasons or finding the statements to go in the right place.